Hi, this is Jim Musser with Upstream Ministries, and this is episode 68 on Views from Downstream. And you'll maybe notice that I took a 2 week hiatus just to think and pray about the direction of this channel. I had mentioned over the last couple of videos that I was thinking that I was becoming redundant and didn't want to be that in these videos. And so one thing that I've tried to do and go looking ahead is to just do one video a week, and hopefully that will help. You're just not hearing me say a lot of things frequently over a week. I think sometimes we can get tired of people we constantly hear from, and so that's one change. And the other is I want to focus, I think, most of my time, or at least much of it, on just the state of the church in America. And just from my perspective and a discipleship perspective. And some of that's going to overlap from what I've said many times before, but I hope I can cover some new ground as well. And so that's where I want to begin. And I remember talking to students and using an illustration about drinking coffee. And I've always loved coffee. Ever since I was a kid, I've loved coffee. But as I look back over my life, for much of my life, I drank what is now considered bad coffee. I drank Folgers and Maxwell House coffee, and my apologies to people who still drink that coffee, but it is some of the poorest coffee in the world. It's taken from coffee beans that aren't really great beans, and it is manufactured in a way that it's just not great coffee, and that's why it's so cheap. And I didn't know what good coffee was until I was probably in my mid-30s when I went to Africa, went to Kenya and Rwanda, and actually had coffee there and bought coffee and brought it back. And it was just so different. It was so much better. And from then on, I was never going to drink Maxwell House or Folgers unless I absolutely had to, which often I did because I was visiting churches, and in their fellowship halls, they would have urns full of Folgers or Maxwell House coffee. And so I tolerated it, but I didn't necessarily like it. And I want to draw a comparison to the church. I was thinking about this in talking with somebody. It's much like my experience with coffee. We have been in the same mode of church for decades. And basically, as I've mentioned many times here before, it's preaching and it's worship. And over time, there used to be prayer times, there used to be sharing times, and we're even getting away from that to where we're basically a two-dimensional church in terms of the worship service. Worship music, preaching. That's it. And that, I think we're so used to that. We're so accustomed to the way things are done that we don't realize how much better things could be. I didn't realize how good coffee could be until I tasted much better coffee. And I think it's the same with us in the church. We are just so used to what we've been consuming for decades that we don't realize there's something better to be had. And that's what I want to challenge us and plead with those of you who are watching, that there's so much better things available, better fellowship that we can obtain and partake of than we're experiencing now. And yet, if you look across our country, for the most part, things are being done much the same way, regardless of denomination, regardless of non-denominational churches. Most everything is being done the same, except for the higher church models, such as Roman Catholicism and Episcopal and perhaps Lutheran, United Methodist perhaps. But the other churches are doing pretty much the same thing. You can go to different churches and it'll be much the same setup. And I just believe there is much better ways to do it than we're doing it now. And so that's what I want to talk about in these coming weeks, about how can we change? How can we get out of what I want to call the spiritual doldrums of church life the way we experience it now? And again, I recognize that many of you may be enjoying it very much, just like I enjoyed coffee for decades before I realized that what I was drinking wasn't very good coffee. And so what I want to do is try to introduce some ideas of what things could be if we just were willing, our church leaders were willing, and the congregants were willing to do some things differently. Most of us are like things the way we like them, the way we're used to them. That's why tradition gets such a foothold in our brains and in our activities, whether they be in church or at home. In our daily lives, we like those traditions. And yet, it's often those very traditions that prevent us from having a full experience of life. And so I just want to begin to challenge you to think about how could we do things differently that would be so much better than what we're experiencing now. And I think there are many things we could be doing very differently. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'll be back next Wednesday with talking about some things general things that I think can begin to happen, and we're just going to take those and we're going to see where it goes. And I may interject some other things along the way, but hopefully you won't get tired of me this way, and perhaps my message will resonate enough to create some momentum in a different direction for the local church. We'll see. But I'm willing to give it a try, and I just feel like God leading me this way. So I look forward to it. And I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next week.